Hello? My fiancé said, my ex will always be in my life. If that's a problem, don't marry me. I replied, okay. Then 2 days later, the wedding invitations were canceled, and she realized the marriage wasn't happening. We were at the dining table, half-empty wine glasses, envelopes spread out like evidence. Her handwriting was sharp and precise, mine a little rushed. We were arguing about whether her cousin needed a +1 when she said it, without looking up, without hesitation. My ex will always be in my life. If that's a problem, don't marry me. She said it the same way you'd say we're out of paper towels. Flat. Final. Like the conversation had already happened in her head, and I was just late to it. For context, I'm Alex, 31M. She's Brianna, 29F. Engaged for 8 months, together for 4 years. Wedding planned for late spring. Deposits paid. Families involved. Dresses chosen. All the irreversible-looking things already in motion. I asked her what always meant. She sighed, loud and theatrical, finally meeting my eyes. It means I'm not cutting someone out of my life just because you're insecure. I reminded her, calmly, that this wasn't just some guy. This was Matt, the ex she dated for 6 years. The one she still texted. The one who somehow knew about our venue before my parents did. She laughed. Actually laughed. God, you're really going to do this now? He's family to me. You knew that when you proposed. That part wasn't true, but I didn't correct her. I just nodded and said, okay. That stopped her. She blinked, straightened in her chair. Okay, what? Okay, I repeated. I hear you. She looked relieved. Smug, even. Like she'd won something. Like she assumed I'd fall back into place the way I always did. She went back to addressing envelopes. She didn't notice that I stopped helping. She didn't notice me quietly stacking the invitation samples back into their box. What she didn't know, what she couldn't see yet, was that okay wasn't agreement. It was the sound of me stepping out of the way. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. That was the part that messed with me the most. Brianna woke up humming, barefoot in the kitchen, wearing one of my old college hoodies like it belonged to her by default. She kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted eggs, and reminded me we needed to finalize the hotel block by Friday. Normal. Effortlessly normal. I watched her from the doorway, coffee cooling in my hand, and realized how often she relied on that, on momentum. If she kept moving, planning, talking, then nothing could stop long enough to be questioned. I asked her if she'd told Matt about the wedding invitations yet. She rolled her eyes. Why would I? He doesn't need the details. That was interesting, considering he already knew the date. I asked how long they'd been talking again. She shrugged. On and off. Why does it matter? I reminded her, again, calmly, that she'd said he'd always be in her life. That kind of permanence affects the person you're marrying. She laughed, sharp and dismissive. You're marrying me, not him. Stop being dramatic. Then she added, casually cruel. Honestly, if you can't handle this now, marriage might not be for you. There it was. Not a conversation, another test. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just nodded and left for work. On my lunch break, I called the stationery vendor. Asked what the cancellation window was on the invitations. Still open. Barely. I didn't cancel yet. I wanted to be sure. That night, she went out for drinks and came home late, smelling like gin and something unfamiliar. She tossed her purse on the counter and said, oh, by the way, Matt says congrats. I didn't ask how he knew. I went to bed early, staring at the ceiling, replaying the ultimatum in my head. Not the words, but the certainty behind them. The way she'd said, don't marry me, like it was a bluff no one would ever call. 2 days, I thought. I'll give it 2 days. Not for her. For me. The second day was quieter. Too quiet. Brianna didn't bring up the ex, didn't poke at me. Didn't test the boundary again. She just floated through the day like everything was locked in. Like the wedding was inevitable. Like my role had already been assigned and signed off on. That confidence didn't come from certainty in us. It came from certainty in me staying. That afternoon, my mom called to ask about hotel arrangements. She was excited, talking fast, already planning who would sit near whom. I answered vaguely and told her I'd call back later. I couldn't bring myself to say the words yet, not because I doubted the decision, but because I needed to do one thing first. I needed to watch Brianna when she didn't know she was being watched. That evening, she left her phone on the couch while she showered. It buzzed. Once. Then again. I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to. She came out, towel wrapped tight, glanced at the screen, and smiled in a way she never smiled at me anymore. Soft. Familiar. Unfiltered. She typed back quickly, then noticed me looking. What? She snapped. Nothing, I said, and meant it. She went back to the bedroom and closed the door harder than necessary. That was when I finally understood something important. She didn't see her ultimatum as a risk. She saw it as leverage. A line she could draw knowing I'd stay on the right side of it because I always had. Later that night, she mentioned, almost proudly, that Matt would probably always be around, even after we were married. Holidays, birthdays, major life stuff. I asked, what about our kids? She scoffed. God, you're exhausting. That was the moment. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. The next morning, while she was at Pilates, I opened my laptop and pulled up the wedding spreadsheet. Venues, caterers, stationery. Every vendor had a status column. I didn't cancel yet, but I highlighted every line. And for the first time since proposing, I felt like I was the one holding the pen. By the time she got back from Pilates, I'd already made my decision. She breezed in like always, keys tossed into the bowl, shoes kicked off without looking, energy loud and self-assured. She talked about an instructor she hated, a girl who copied her outfit, how her mom wanted to add more people to the guest list. I nodded in the right places, said almost nothing. She noticed. Of course she did. What's your problem today? She asked, opening the fridge. You've been weird all week. Weird. Not hurt. Not concerned. Weird. I told her I'd been thinking about what she said. About her ex. About always. She didn't even turn around. I already told you how I feel. I'm not revisiting this. That's kind of the issue, I said. She shut the fridge harder than necessary. Alex, if this is another attempt to make me choose, save it. I'm not doing that. Matt isn't going anywhere. I asked her, quietly, why she needed him that much if she was marrying me. She laughed. Again. That same laugh, mean this time. You really don't get it, do you? He knows me in ways you never will. History matters. That sentence sat between us like a dare. I asked her if she'd ever considered how that sounded to the person she was about to marry. She crossed her arms. If that's a problem, then don't marry me. There it was. Again. Clearer this time. Sharper. No room to pretend it was a joke. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just said, okay. She rolled her eyes. Good. Glad that's settled. She walked past me, already done with the conversation. She didn't see me open my laptop that night. Didn't hear the quiet clicks as I started sending emails. Didn't know I was reading cancellation policies instead of vows. She went to bed confident. Certain. She had no idea the clock had started ticking, not on the wedding, but on her assumptions. The first cancellation email went out at 9:12 a.m. I remember the time because I stared at the sent confirmation longer than I needed to, waiting for something, panic, regret, adrenaline. It didn't come, just a steady calm. I started with the invitations. Change of plans, I wrote. Please pause printing and distribution. I'll follow up shortly. They replied within minutes. Polite, professional, easy. That surprised me. I think some part of me expected the universe to resist, to push back. Instead, everything moved smoothly, like I was finally going with the grain instead of against it. Brianna was out running errands. I knew because she'd posted a story from Target complaining about people with no spatial awareness. I muted it without thinking. Next was the venue, then the caterer, then the florist. Each call followed the same pattern. Brief explanation, mild surprise, confirmation of cancellation terms. Money lost, sure, but less than I'd imagined. Less than staying. By noon, the wedding had quietly stopped existing. That afternoon, she texted me. Did you email the invitation people yet? My mom is asking. I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I replied. Yes. Nothing else. 3 dots appeared immediately. And I waited. Not to be cruel. Just to let the moment land the way it needed to. They're canceled. There was a long pause this time. 5 minutes. 10. Then, what do you mean canceled? I packed a bag while I waited for her to get home. Not everything. Just enough. The things that were clearly mine. Clothes. Laptop. Documents. When the front door finally opened, she came in already mid-sentence, voice sharp and elevated. Okay, seriously, what the hell is going on? She stopped when she saw the bag. Her eyes moved from it to me, then back again. You didn't, she said. Not angry yet. Disbelieving. I nodded. I did. Her face hardened instantly. You're bluffing. No, I said. I'm responding. She laughed, short, disbelieving, a little panicked. You canceled our wedding because of one conversation? I looked at her and answered honestly. No. I canceled it because you told me exactly where I rank. That was the first time she didn't have something ready to say. She didn't cry right away. That came later. First came anger. The sharp, Brittle kind that needs to hurt something to feel real. You're insane, Brianna snapped, pacing the living room like it owed her an explanation. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? People have flights booked, dresses ordered. I sat on the couch, bag at my feet, hands folded. You told me not to marry you if I had a problem. I listened. That wasn't literal, she shot back. Jesus, Alex. It was a figure of speech. I tilted my head. An ultimatum is only a figure of speech if you never expect it to be taken seriously. She stopped pacing and stared at me. So you're just what? Walking away? After 4 years? No, I said. I walked away 2 days ago. Today I just made it official. She scoffed. You're doing this to control me. To scare me into cutting him off. I shook my head. If I wanted to control you, I'd still be here arguing. That landed harder than anything else I'd said. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it instinctively, then froze when she realized I noticed. Is that him? I asked. She hesitated half a second too long. Why does it matter? I stood up and picked up my bag. It doesn't. That's the point. That's when the anger cracked and something uglier slipped through. You're really okay throwing this away? She said, voice tight. You'll regret this. People like you always do. I paused at the door, not because I doubted myself, but because I wanted to remember her exact expression in that moment. Not heartbreak, not grief, fear. Fear that the safety net she'd never acknowledged was being folded up and put away. I don't think so, I said quietly. This is the first honest thing we've done in a long time. I walked out while she was still standing there, phone in hand, already typing. I didn't need to see who she was texting. I already knew. I didn't hear from her the next day. That worried me more than the yelling. Brianna wasn't the silent type. She performed emotion. Silence meant she was regrouping, rewriting, deciding which version of the story would benefit her most. That evening, my phone started lighting up, not from her, but from other people. Her sister texted first. Can you please call Bri? She's not doing well. Then her mom. I don't understand what's happening. You owe us an explanation. That phrasing made my jaw tighten. Owe us. I replied politely to both. This is between Brianna and me. I won't be discussing it through intermediaries. 10 minutes later, Brianna finally texted. I can't believe you're doing this to me. Not to us. Not to the relationship. To her. She followed it with, Matt agrees you're being unreasonable. That one actually made me laugh. Out loud. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my parents and told them the wedding was off. My mom went quiet, then asked if I was okay. My dad didn't ask why, just said, come by this weekend. No pressure. No judgment. That night, I slept on a friend's couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying 4 years of moments I dismissed as not worth the fight. Every time she'd prioritized him. Every time she'd mocked my discomfort instead of addressing it. Around midnight, another text came through. I never said I loved him more than you. I stared at it for a long time. She was right. She didn't have to. Her choices had said it for her. I typed a response. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. Eventually, I put the phone face down and closed my eyes. For the first time since proposing, I wasn't trying to fix anything. And that felt like freedom. 2 days after I canceled the wedding, Brianna finally showed up where I was staying. No warning. No text. Just her knock. Sharp. Impatient. Like I'd kept her waiting on purpose. When I opened the door, she looked different. Not undone. Not fragile. Just controlled. Makeup perfect. Outfit intentional. Like she was walking into a negotiation, not the fallout of an engagement. So, she said, stepping past me without asking. You've made your point. I closed the door slowly. This isn't a point. It's a decision. She turned, exasperated. You always do this. You go quiet and dramatic instead of talking things through. I laughed under my breath. You gave me an ultimatum. I chose. She crossed her arms. You chose to throw away a future because you couldn't handle an adult friendship. There it was again. The rewrite. I asked her why she needed Matt to be permanent in her life and non-negotiable in our marriage. She didn't hesitate. Because he knows me. Because he was there first. Because I won't be controlled by a man who needs reassurance every 5 minutes. Every sentence landed like she'd practiced it. I nodded. Then you shouldn't marry me. Her mouth opened, then closed. That's not what I meant, she snapped. But it's what you said. She rolled her eyes hard. You're twisting my words. No, I said calmly. I'm finally taking them seriously. She stared at me, then changed tactics. You really think you're going to do better? She said softly. You're not exactly easy to love. That one almost worked. Old reflexes stirred. Old doubts. Then I remembered how easily she'd said, don't marry me. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Her voice cracked for the first time. You're really not coming back? I looked at her, not angry, not sad. No, I said. I'm finally leaving on time. She stood there as I opened the door, realization slowly replacing confidence. This wasn't a scare tactic. The marriage wasn't postponed. It was over. The story didn't end when I left. That's what I didn't expect. Over the next week, the wedding unraveled in quiet, bureaucratic ways. Emails, refund confirmations, polite apologies from vendors who didn't ask questions. My calendar slowly emptied itself like it was correcting a mistake. Brianna, on the other hand, unraveled loudly. Mutual friends started reaching out, not to ask how I was, but to clarify. Apparently, she was telling people I had a jealous breakdown, that I was threatened by her independence, that I overreacted to a friendship. One friend sent me a screenshot by accident. Brianna had written, "If he really loved me, he wouldn't have walked away over something so small." Small. I didn't respond. I didn't correct the record. Anyone who believed that version was never going to understand mine anyway. Then, 3 nights later, she called. I almost didn't answer. Almost. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it, she said the second I picked up. No hello. Her voice was tight, defensive, like she was already bracing for an argument. That's the problem, I replied. You didn't think you had to mean what you said. She exhaled sharply. So that's it. You just give up? I leaned back against the counter in my parents' kitchen, listening to the hum of the fridge. I didn't give up. I opted out. There was silence. Then, Matt says you'll calm down eventually. I closed my eyes. That's not his call, I said. And it's not yours anymore either. Her voice dropped, suddenly small. I don't know how this got so far. I answered honestly. Because you never thought I'd stop choosing you over myself. She didn't reply. We stayed on the line for a few seconds, the distance between us finally doing what conversations never could. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt since the engagement started. Relief. Not because I'd won. Because I was done. The last thing to fall apart was the illusion that we might circle back to each other. A week after that call, I got one final message from her. Not angry. Not dramatic. Just carefully wounded. I hope one day you realize you overreacted. I stared at it for a long time. Because here's the thing, I did realize something. Just not what she hoped. I realized that love doesn't come with permanent footnotes. It doesn't ask you to accept a third presence as a condition of commitment. And it definitely doesn't frame your discomfort as a character flaw. I didn't reply. Instead, I went back to my life. Slowly, quietly, I returned the suit I'd bought for the wedding. I deleted the planning spreadsheet. I stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. People asked what happened. I kept it simple. She told me who she wouldn't let go of. I listened. That answer filtered people faster than any explanation ever could. A month later, I heard through someone else that Matt was being supportive, that they were talking more, that she was confused about how things ended. None of that surprised me. What did surprise me was how little it mattered. The wedding never happened. The marriage never started. And for the first time, I wasn't trying to earn a place in someone else's life by shrinking my own needs. She gave me an ultimatum and assumed it was safe. She thought love meant I'd bend. Turns out, love also means knowing when to step away. And saying, okay, was the most honest thing I ever did. Bye-bye.